So once again, we continue with the London Marathon. This is the elite men's race with a great deal of people, thousands of people behind them. It's a 26.2 miles run, starting from the Greenwich, and all the way throughout London, and ending at Buckingham Palace. This is a 40-year-old event that has been going on in London and has been growing year on year. Remember to hit the subscribe button. The whole idea is to give an opportunity to people without access to British TV to get to see these great events online. And so, yeah, wonderful.
I think that group will break up a little bit. Pacemakers in a very nice nutty strip this year, isn't it? Remember the days in the black and white of Shaftesbury Harriers, which was Bedford's old club, and the pacemakers for a long, long time wore black and white stripes. It's a little bit more colourful.
Yeah, they can't make the excuse that they couldn't spot the pacemakers, can they? I'm not sure what they're actually indicating for. I think they're warning them for the bumps in the road, so they're putting their hands out to the side just to warn the runners, because if your eyes are locked on the feet of the person in front of you, you're going to see it, of course, but if your eyes are locked on the back of them, you won't, so they're just indicating that those sleeping policemen, or whatever they're called, are in the way.
Well, back with the women, there's still a large group here. Only one pacemaker, though. They did have two, but the Ethiopian pacemakers, yeah, this was chosen by Yohwalo. The Kenyan pacemaker had to be replaced in the last couple of days, so the replacement just flew in, and she's already dropped off the pace. So I think it will be all down to Yohwalo's pacemaker to set things up here. So everybody is still in there. They went through 10k. We'll be heading towards 15k pretty soon. And 32.18, they must be very close to the 15k points, and that was 2:16 pace. It always settles down the second. When that first 5k is always so quick, and you get a much better idea through 10 and then now through 15 to see what sort of pace they're running.
And just look at the facial expression on Yohwalo there. She's completely relaxed. Only her eyes are really moving and just kind of making sure that she's aware of any obstacles or anything in the road ahead of her, and just checking her watch every so often, but very, very relaxed in contrast to the other women who you do get the impression are working a fair bit harder than she is at this point. Jocelyn Jepkoskai towards the back of that group behind the orange vest of Korea, who was silver medalist in UG.
Yeah, quite a big gap then to the, just all diving for bottles there. It's so important. Athletes give their bottles the night before, I think yesterday, by about 5 o'clock they had to put them in, so they've gone through at 48.51. So they have slowed, but they're still within range, but that's a significant slowing through that 5 kilometre section. 48.51 for the leaders. Still a big group there. And others just looking fairly comfortable at this. And that's an interesting point, because I think the race plan for Yohwalo had been to try and run pretty hard through the first half. She really is trusting herself. She's run so quick in the half marathon, actually offering her pacemaking friend a drink as well, because she wants her to keep going as long as she can.
Yeah, not a totally selfless act. She definitely wants her to be able to maintain that pace and just to have some company should she get herself away from this lead group for as long as possible. So have what you need and then pass on that fuel on to the pacemakers. I'm not sure pacemakers are given their allocated drinks. I'm not sure there's space for them on the tables. They do, of course, get their elite fluids every 5 kilometres. That's how we have a little bit of an inkling that the 15-kilometre marker was coming up then, because they went to the 15k drink station. They can take what they want as long as it's attached to their bottle at that feed station, and then many of these women keeping on a hold of that bottle for as long as possible and making sure they get as much fuel into themselves as this race keeps moving along at such a quick pace.
Still leading in the women's wheelchair, De Bruyne. She was about 20 odd seconds ahead of the American, and the last time we looked, Susanna was, I think, just dropping a little further back. Susanna Scaroni is now well over a minute behind. So this is looking like a commanding lead.
I mean, De Bruyne's just played a very smart tactical race, and her push-in's getting a little bit short and sort of a bit choppy. But actually, that defies just how much power she's putting into the push-in. And she's still predicted about a 1:35 at the moment, which MarcelHug holds the course record from last year at 1:39. So if this is, course record pace, it might still drop a bit because it gets a little bit up and down. But she's having an incredible day today, a really amazing push from Catherine De Bruyne. And in the men's race, there hasn't been any change in lead at all. MarcelHug has been out front now for pretty much the whole of the race. Every time he tries to force Daniel Romanchek through, Daniel just stops pushing, looks at him, and then Marcel puts in another big kick, and Daniel is just able to sit right on his back wheel. And you see how close he's getting to the back of his frame. He's getting a couple of inches off, he's getting a superb draft. And it looks there like Marcel's just having a bit of a word and saying, come on, be fair. This is like cycling. You get such a massive advantage if you're drafting. But Daniel's just dropped back in again. And they're predicted to finish in about 1:22 at the moment. So they're keeping up the average pace. But with Romanchek, he's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's got huge arms, and he's just able to cover every single attack that Marcel makes just really easily. He's well within himself.
Yeah, like 20 minutes left in that race. These two still so close together. And these twists and turns, opportunities sometimes in the wheelchair race, but nothing that MarcelHug can do to get rid of Daniel Romanchuk, who's very happy just sitting in behind and being as patient as he can be. So I mentioned earlier on, it'll be the best part of 90 minutes for everybody to get across the start line. Everybody being very patient, doesn't matter. You might be wondering how that affects their times, or if you've never taken part in an event like this, everyone has their own electronic chip, which determines when they cross the start line and when they cross the finish line. And that all gets sorted out in the wash afterwards as to where you finish. And this year, we mentioned earlier on, because as far as at the beginning, that we've got assisted wheelchair athletes as well, as you see the next wave starting to come through. Pace runners ahead of them. Once she's ready, synchronised, off they go.
Tough job to get it right for those pace guys. I've just seen Akram Shalabi going through there, and he's raised a fair amount of money over the years for different charities, but actually runs as a pacemaker in many of them and does a very, very good job at getting enough people around to the goals that they've set themselves coming into this race.
Well, if they set on their merry way, and I hope it is a merry way for most of them, then we know that still thousands and thousands yet to have their chance to start the race. Well underway at the front as well. We'll keep an eye on everything, but for the time being, let's go back together.
Thank you very much, Steve. We'll leave the bobbing heads for a moment. Of course, you can catch up with everything that's going out there with the masses on any of the BBC digital formats, the website and the app. And if you were with us on BBC Two a little bit earlier, you'd have heard the story of the Curve family from Northern Ireland, whose son Aaron is in a wheelchair, and there they are, Mum Sandra, Dad David. This is their 50th marathon, the first London marathon they've ever run, because this is the first time an assisted wheelchair has been allowed out there on the course, and it's a very special day for that family. We wish them all the best. Hopefully we'll catch up with them a little bit later on. But now my next guests up here have all got one thing in common. There we go, that music, you can't help but move. And here they are, my Freeze the Fear pal Diane Beswell, and she is alongside her partner this year, Tyler West, and Mark Wright, who of course is a strictly hero from years gone by, but
Hero,
today...
hero, mate. That's it.
He's a heroic
A
effort.
trying hero.
Running the marathon today, of course. Diane here to make sure Tyler doesn't get injured. I
Exactly.
cannot believe you're here. I watched you last night.
Yeah.
31 points.
Yeah.
The real deal, said Shirley Ballas.
Thank you, Shell. Again, I don't think I've actually quite slept on that comment, to be fair.
And I thought, well, he's going to wake up tomorrow morning and think, nah, I'm going to just preserve my body and my limbs and I'm going to just focus on Strictly. But no, you're putting yourself on the line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I committed to it earlier on in the year, and I'm 100%. I'm never going to let people down. Diana will be looking after me anyway to make sure that I just don't push myself too far. But yeah,
Tell us who you're running for then.
I'm running for UK Youth, so they support UK Youth up and down the UK, providing support workers, outreach centres, and places so they can access confidence, opportunities, employment. They're an amazing charity that we're running for.
Diane, you are utilising this man's energy and endurance, I feel, in training.
Yeah, giving him the jive the
Absolutely.
night before.
I know.
mean, you could have done the waltz or
Makes
something
so
like
much
that.
sense. It's been your training for the week, hasn't
It
it? To
literally
do
has.
this today, so you can thank me for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Diana.
welcome.
And this is not tempting you, Diane. You're not looking out there thinking, I'm going to put my track.
Oh,
You're a fit bunny.
It's very tempting, but I think I'll just be on the sidelines and watch for
I've
today.
lived with you in a tent for 3 weeks. Her energy is unabated. She never stops,
Absolutely,
does she? So
absolutely.
I can see a future runner there. Now, last year, yours was a very sad story, Mark, because on the eve of the marathon, having done all the training, you had to pull out. And
Correct.
I remember chatting to you, you were heartbroken about that. So it's brilliant to see you back here this year. Are you in one piece?
I am in one piece. My calf, the same calf as last year, is feeling a bit tight. I've got a little strain in it again, but it's nowhere near as bad as last year, which was a tear. I think the reason why it's so upsetting is this bit, the actual day, yes, it's hard, but this is the bit it's all about. It's fun and whatever, but the training, that's the mentally and physically draining bit. You're out there for 3 hours on your own on the road, come wind, rain or shine, you've got to get it done. So to do all of that and then get injured, it was devastating. But I look at it as a positive, because now I've got 2 years kind of worth of training.
Yes. So
yeah.
times-wise, are you more ambitious this year than you were last year?
No, the same probably. I was a lot more ambitious about 4 weeks ago, but I got a little bit ill, so I had 2-3 weeks off. Listen, there's always complaints along the way. All I want to do is get it completed, enjoy it. My family and friends are here. It's a great day. We're all doing it for a great reason.
The Get Towns Active campaign. Tell us a bit about that.
So we're convincing towns to get active. We were down in Brighton the other day, actually. If you're from Brighton, you need to listen to this. Apparently it's the least active town in the UK.
Really?
Yes.
That's where Diane lives.
That's why she doesn't live there anymore. I'm doing it.
Oh, I do.
Oh, right. You probably make up for like all of it.
She brings the aggregate right up.
Yeah. And basically we're convincing towns to get active. It's so important to stay active. I'm doing a marathon, which is out of my comfort zone. So just if you could just get out there and do something more than you did yesterday, it's so important.
As a massive Strictly fan, what's the next dance? Can we get a little sneak preview?
I mean, you know, I'm just,
We need to see if we get through
I'm
first.
loving every second of it.
Of course, sorry.
Loving every
Yes,
second of it.
we'll find out tonight. I
We
wonder if
find
you
out
do.
tonight.
31 points in the real deal. Let's see. Jeopardy.
Just
guys,
throw some lifts in. Look at these
This is-
arms.
well, this is it.
He can throw you above the ball.
never mind a one
do it
arm
across
thing.
the
We're going to
finish
be
line.
doing a one finger.
Just one finger lift.
Yeah, I think so. Spinning you round as well. I expect to see that on week 8.
All right, we'll
okay.
do that for you,
Good
Gabs.
luck, guys.
Thank
Best of
you.
luck.
Thank you very
And on
much.
the course, and of course with Strictly as well. Okay.
To be there on the start line, be your friend. Tell me what you're looking forward to the most.
Finishing and seeing some of my lovely friends who've come out to support me who will be dotted around the course. Really looking forward to that.
Alongside, of course, Dave and Sharon. And Dave and Sharon, you're running together. You are a dynamic duo. That's what I'm going to call you. And Dave, you're running for a really special reason, aren't you? Just give us a bit of insight as to why you're running today.
Yeah, so we're running for Starlight, it's a children's foundation, and they help poorly children, give them gifts and toys, and get them through difficult times of anxiety in hospitals. We think we've raised pretty close to £5,000 now, but the more the merrier. I'm really looking forward to it.
For you as well, Sharon, catch the 5K alongside your husband. Tell me how that was. Is it competitive?
Dave's very competitive. He likes to win. But yeah, it's been quite a journey from us not being able to run to here we are and doing the marathon, the biggest marathon.
You're going to cross that finish line together, guys?
We are, yeah, we're going to run the whole thing side by side. We're a bit concerned because the amount of people, so we don't want to get broken up if we don't have to, but we'll find each other again if we need to. So.
I look forward to seeing you along the course. Good luck today.
Thank you very much, thank you.
Oh, there truly are some incredible people out there today, and from couch to 5K to the 26.2 miles, well, that is the beauty of the marathon. Anyone and everyone can take part, and today they'll share the same roads with the very greatest in the world, which is really what is so incredible about this race. So let's catch up now with those elites who are out there at the front and have already made a big dent in their marathon today, and head back to Baroness Tanni Grey-Thompson, Paula Radcliffe and Steve Cram.
Well, we've still got a very close and enthralling race in the men's wheelchair. Nothing between the two. It's been the same all the way, pretty much since the mile one, perhaps. MarcelHug, the defending champion, Paralympic champion, Daniel Romanchuk, who has won here in London, but Hug, the pre-event favourite, cannot get rid of the American. Tanni.
So, I mean, there's just been no break at all for Marcel. He's constantly looking behind him. Daniel's made no attempt to come through, and it's totally within the rules what he's doing, but you'd say it's just not the done thing to sit on someone's wheel for this long and make no attempt to pull to the front. So it's really frustrating now. So Marcel's choices are, he keeps trying to kick, but Daniel's covering every single break, or he has got an option of just slowing the pace down and trying to force it through, but it's pretty hard when you're out the front and someone behind you is just not doing anything at all to help.
Well, we're getting closer. The crowds are growing. This race far from over. They are in the section of the course where they are coming back against the. When we get the masses, they'll be able to see runners on both sides of the road. Tower of London, they'll be able to see on their right-hand side, actually on the left-hand side, isn't it, as they come down here. Actually, we're just going to have a little look at something that's happened in the women's race. Catherine de Brunner. Now, Tanni, watch this.
That looks like she might. No, she hasn't got a puncture. That is really weird what happened, because she didn't quite overrun. It's whether she sits very, very flat as an athlete, and you see she's quite often just, drops her head down, looks up for a couple of pushes and then goes down, and it's whether she just didn't realise the corner was there. So for the wheelchair athletes, the blue line is not always terribly useful to follow because you take a different line round the bends. So it's whether she just had a bad time. And both wheels look like they're inflated. I think it was just not a great decision as she was coming around the bend. She's still predicted to go into the course record on 1:36 at the moment, so she's back in shape and back pushing well.
Well, just take a drink on board and try to concentrate. She's got a big lead. Whereas in the women's race, it's just settled down. Yohalo is at the back of that group. She did just go and get a drink and something. Well, they've all got their own drinks and their own supplements that they'll have mixed up beforehand. But she's now in the back of the pack there. Bekele, Kebede, Magertu, the other Ethiopians in the group there. Joanne Melly, Romania, former Kenyan. Then we've got the defending champion, Joycelyn Jatkowski, and the world silver medalist Judith Correa in the orange. So all still there, and they've got a big lead, or pretty big lead, back to Marion Gugi, who's the only one in the chase group. And just wondering, Paula, whether Yohalo has decided, you know what, forget the fast time here, I've now got to start thinking about winning this. Long way to go, we're not even halfway, almost halfway.
It is, and it is just after the 20k drink station, so just as I say that, the times flash up. 65:25 through 20k, and perhaps Yohalo was just making sure that she got her bottle okay, and she was able to settle into that group. Perhaps you can see some of the flags, the wind is picking up a little bit, so maybe she's decided.
So the runners just gone through Tower Bridge. So they're doing pretty good. Remember once again to subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button on the bottom right corner for major events in London and in the UK. Once again, a great opportunity for those without access to British TV to basically get to watch these events.
Judge whether they're going to make any move towards the front of this pack, because certainly those two have sat near the back for most of it so far. Buckingham has also been fairly well up all the way through. Cabeda as well is looking strong through this first half of the race, so as I said, it still is the longer half, should we say, in terms of things that can play out to come in this race today. So it's certainly hotting up a little bit in terms of an exciting race to watch, but slowing down a little bit in terms of the predicted pace that they were on. So from a 2:16 start, which we knew was a little bit skewed by that downhill section, they're now predicted 2:18 finish time.
Mary Googie, who had set up at a slower pace, but she herself was slowed as well. So for her, target was to run sub 2:20, and she's just slipped outside that a little bit. Was moving okay there. Has got one pacemaker. She did have two pacemakers because the pacemaker who dropped off the lead group was with them for a short, well, probably for a 4 or 5k to be honest. But she's dropped away, and I think she's stopped now. So they're effectively chasing around about, what, best part of a minute or more behind? Yeah, just over a minute behind. Really interesting to see that group still there, as Paula was saying. Johanna now not the one who's dictating matters, not the one trying to force things at the front, talking to the pacemaker. And it's Bekele and Cabeda who are up there, and she's now in the pack, settling, just maybe trying to have a quiet period of the race.
And the fact that that last mile, 5:18, that is one of the miles of this race where it's very hard to run a slower mile because the crowds are so thick, it's so loud, and the atmosphere is such a buzz coming over Tower Bridge that it's very hard to keep a lid on it and not pick the pace up a little bit. So I think that does indicate that these women perhaps paying that price for having gone out a little bit too quickly in that first 5 kilometres or so, and perhaps Johanna is just going through a bad patch as well. I mean, it does happen very often. They asked for 68 low, hadn't they, through halfway, 68.30, so there we are, 68.46, so still very, very fast running, but should we say the harder way to run it, and questions now being asked without a doubt in the minds of those other women as to what's going on with Johanna.
Meanwhile, in the men's race, Andy Butcher, Emil Keres, who'd been asked to help out with the other pacemaker, and Gogo, who will be trying to go to 30k. He's been told to try, well, certainly 25k, so he's getting help with the pacemaker duties early on here. But can Lisa Bekele, happy there, Kipruto just grabbing his drink. Bashir as well, just grabbed his as they'll dive across to the table. A little bit of panic, and everybody seems to have got what they need.
They always panic, don't they? And they must have run countless drink stations in their life, and they know it's coming. There's a big sign that says 5 kilometre feed stations coming up on whichever side of the road it is. They were told that in the technical meeting, and yet still you see just too many people focused on the best ahead of them instead of thinking about the race plan and strategy, and making sure that this early stage in the race they get the drink stations. So no drinks for the pacemakers at this point, but the others seem to all in the end get theirs without a hitch, I think. Did Lemmer get his? He's struggling a little bit, the defending champion at the back. It looks as though he's looking to be working a little bit harder than he would probably hope to be at this point in the race.
Yeah, there's talk this week at the Athletes Hotel about what sort of form CC Lemmer was in, and by all accounts he's in good shape and ready to race. But I mentioned that one of the rock talkers are partly about Abdi.
So that's the elite men runners, and the pacemakers in the sort of bright pink tops, going through the Cul-de-sac in Greenwich. As you can see, once again at a very top pace.
to it. So I bumped into Eliud Kipchoge in the week, as you do, and I asked him for his pick in this race, and he was just pointing out, as we get a look at Mark Scott pacing the Brett Robinson there. Oh no, oh, don't take me the wrong way, Mark.
What's going on there?
He had one job.
Oh, it's because the bike heads off as they come round Cutty Sark. The lead bike has a different lane to follow, and they followed the bike instead of the route. Oh well, no harm done.
So anyway, Elliot's pick was that it's very, very close. Kipruto will be in there. He thinks Bashir Abdi will be in there, obviously, as they are, but he wasn't sticking his neck on the line in any way in terms of predicting the winner.
So as they go round Cutty Sark, others will be dreaming of that in an hour or so, perhaps, as they just set off on the start line. Plenty of room for everybody. The waves will continue probably for the best part of another hour yet. We've only just over 30 minutes since the elite men got underway. What an operation this is. And everybody is very good, you know, they stick to the wave that they were put in. Nobody starts to go, oh, I'd like to get off a bit earlier, I'd like to get off nearer the front. Mind you, there are plenty who want to be nearer the back as well, but everybody lines up at the designated time they were asked to.
And sometimes it's a good thing to be held back a little bit, as we were saying, in these opening miles. If there's a lot of bodies around you and you can't get moving too fast, that can be a good thing in terms of having more energy in the second part of the race. So a lot of people around you to help and support you through those tough stages as well. So celebrate being a part of something special today. And if you see any of those purple jacketed people, they've done put a lot of work into organising this race and making sure it goes off without a hitch.
Here we go, Tanny, as it's been all the way on Birdcage Walk. MarcelHug just ahead of Daniel Romanchuk, and Daniel Romanchuk can sprint as well.
He absolutely can, and this final turn up to the finish is actually quite tense. So the pace slowed in the last couple of kilometres. The downside for that is it meant Daniel had loads of recovery. Even now, as Marcel's just trying to pick it up a little bit, he's still not pushing.
So the disabled runners down the Birdcage Walk approaching Buckingham Palace, and so these two are gonna battle it out for the finish, and then we'll see who is the winner.
Momentum there when he went for it. Can he get back? It's last year's winner MarcelHug, who's just found enough. It's going to be another course record for the Swiss athlete. Romanchuk took the risk, went for it, paid for it, and now has to finish in second place as he did last year. MarcelHug is the winner again, and perhaps that's a just victory for Hug, having led it pretty much gun to tape. But did he cut him off there, Tanny? Was that a gap for Romanchuk to go for?
That wasn't a gap for Romanchuk to go for. In terms of the line he took, MarcelHug was in front, and he took a really fair line. I mean, Marcel is a very, very gracious athlete. He might not be terribly happy with that, because even though there's nothing in the rules to say you should have an equal turn, it would be unusual at this level to sit behind and not do a scrap of work in terms of that race. So I think that from what we saw was a fair turn and was a fair sprint for the finish line. And that's Paul Odermatt, Marcel's coach. So they're probably having quite a balanced chat about what happens in the race. Now you see, that actually looked like Daniel also didn't take the turn. He didn't keep his hands on the steering. So then Marcel's got a really straight line. That is totally fine. He's got a gap, and this is where Daniel decides to try and cut in on him. So he still doesn't have the line. That is still Marcel's line at that point. I'd take that as a fair turn. Actually, at that point, if Marcel had just grabbed his steering and just turned a little bit, he might have made that gap.
Well, Romanchuk lost momentum. Hug himself did a little bit as well, but he picked up quicker and he just got back. Got the speed back a little quicker than the American, and then went away, and Romanchuk
So it's a win for the Swiss for the disabled run. Guy took the lead all the way through and also pushed it really good in the last moments. So that's the lady disabled. So she seems to be the only one at the front. So gold is almost guaranteed. Well, as I said, almost in the sense that there is somebody tailing her. Once again, remember to hit that subscribe button on the bottom right corner to get an opportunity to see these great events in the UK. Obviously more for those who don't have access to British TV.
Incredible time for the London Marathon, which is a really tough course.
So the embankment ahead, the curve of the River Thames, the side of Big Ben in the distance, drawing you ever closer to the finish. There are a couple of rises here as you go underneath the underpasses, Blackfriars, and then not much really in terms of an incline normally, but for the wheelchair athletes and for the elites and everybody else, just feel it a little bit because it's the closing miles.
And it can be a little bit windy along there again, and especially with the disc wheels. Sometimes some of the lighter athletes will find they're blown a little bit across the road. And there was a while when there was kind of a real phase for going for deep rim front wheels. They look nice. They might be great for bikes, but for chairs they're not particularly safe. But Catherine's pushing really well at the moment. She's keeping up a good average speed. Slight downhill now, but she's keeping up really good average speeds and is going to finish at a fast time.
Well, this is going to be a close one for third, fourth and fifth. That looks like Suzuki, I think, David Weir, and then Platt. Yes, it is. These three have been together quite a while. So Suzuki leading them. Can David Weir come up with another third finish? He was third in Berlin last week, and we'll be hoping that he can find some of that old sprinting speed. His 23rd London Marathon.
He knows how to take this corner, is David Weir. All his victories have come just playing it absolutely right on that final turn, and he's just in the draft.
Yeah. So once again for the men's disabled race, battling it out in the last moment for the bronze medal, and so we will see how that plays out on the final bend.
Here he goes, David Weir, just getting a little bit of an advantage over Suzuki, and David Weir just finds that little bit extra. It's what London does to him, it's what he does for London. David Weir takes third place, clenches his fists. That's 2 weeks in a row where he's managed to come in third. Fair way behind MarcelHug and Daniel Romanchuk, but David Weir to do it again and hang in there and be good enough and strong enough and quick enough in the final meters to still fight for third place. So well done to him. Suzuki takes fourth, and Platt, it's a good performance from him and this sort of company taking fifth place. Wasn't going to let that go, Tanny, was he?
You can see that means a huge amount to